Hey, greetings from Las Vegas. Merry Christmas and welcome to Beat the Odds. Now, even if you're on Santa's naughty list, you can get on our nice list. All you got to do is watch this show for the next 30 minutes. We're easy. All right, Beat the Odds starts right now.
From our Las Vegas studios, this is Beat the Odds, sponsored by Superbook Westgate Las Vegas.
All right, here we go. Welcome inside our Las Vegas studio. I'm Dave Hall.
And I'm Mariah Janos. Before we unwrap those gifts Christmas morning, maybe we can unwrap some wins this weekend.
Well, in addition to Santa Claus, we also have Santa Jack and Santa Teddy to help us out, though I do think we need to fatten up Santa Teddy a little bit. A few more cookies, maybe?
Yeah, let's take it from 3 Santas to 4, just with Teddy alone. Santa Jack is on the road this week. Here he is from a boat in Florida.
Hello and welcome to South Florida. This is Beat the Odds. We're on the road. Florida, the epicenter of football right now, with Tampa, Jacksonville, and Miami all doing really well, and the center of bowl season. It's time we go to Florida. Welcome this holiday edition of Beat the Odds does South Florida.
Also coming up on the show, Teddy will tell us what every division leader has in common and why it's critical to their success. Plus, both of our Santas will deliver their best bets.
And I'm taking a deep dive into some comments made by the GOAT, Tom Brady. Plus, Brandon Marshall is back to talk which teams are sneakily making a playoff push.
All right, good stuff. Thanks, Mariah. With Jack on the road, it's just me and you, Teddy, today.
We can hang.
I think we're all right. Should we start with the big guy in Florida?
If we have
I mean, he's all, I guess we do. That's what the rundown says, so I guess we have to. To our friends watching on the Yes Network, New York, yikes. Jack, take it away.
Yeah, guys, so the big shockers to me this week, and I think to all of the sports gamblers down here in Florida, as Florida has become the latest state to legalize sports gambling, has to be some of the inconsistent play from some of the teams this time of year. We've got teams like New York came down here to Miami. Seems like everybody got lost at the beach when they came to the game after such a great effort the week before. Zach Wilson had put up big numbers, offensive player of the week in the league, and then he came to Florida only 36 yards, terrible passing percentage, and they get rolled by Miami. That has to be that yin and yang of those 2 weeks. Has to be a big surprise. The other surprise also from down here in Florida is Tampa Bay. Baker Mayfield finding his way. We talked about that. That was my top play last week on the show. He's finding his way, settling in. They go on the road to Green Bay, the first visiting quarterback ever at Lambeau Field to have a perfect passer rating. This Tampa Bay team is sneaky right now. They're in obviously a horrible division. They're going to make the playoffs most likely, and they're going to be one of those teams we put in, probably don't want to play them this time of year because they're getting better. Their defense is certainly shored up, and they've got a few playmakers. So those would be the 2 big shockers to me from last week.
What are the odds he slept in that shirt?
50, maybe 3-1.
3-1. All right, well, let's build on what he was talking about. Tampa Bay, that was one of the teams you had highlighted as well, Tim.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with, I like to make fun of Jack, but I agree with his assessment 100% about Tampa Bay as A, being a live team right now, and B, that was a pretty impressive shocker last week. Shockers for me last week, Carolina won a game. Now, admittedly, they're only short underdogs, but they've been playing pretty bad football all season long. Found a way to steal one against Atlanta. That was a shocker. And unfortunately, if you tailed my best bet last week, I like Dallas. Well, that was pretty wrong. Buffalo didn't just beat them. They blew them out. To me, that was a pretty big shocker, Dave.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Dallas once again going on the road for a big game. It's like a totally different team.
Well, we'll talk about Dallas a fair bit during this show, and we'll talk about them again when it comes to best bet time. But we also got to talk bad beats from last week. And certainly, we don't talk about first half bad beats very often. If you had Jacksonville +3 against Baltimore in the first half last week, that's as ugly as it gets. 4 drives, all in a Baltimore territory. They have a chance at the end of punching a touchdown, and instead they end up with a goose egg at the half. That was a pretty tough beat, no doubt. Chicago +2.5 against Cleveland. Looked like they're going to win the game, and they find a way to lose it. And then they have the Hail Mary at the end, and they find a way to drop it. Chicago +2.5. Ouch, they lose by 3. And Washington +6.5 against L.A. You had not only the missed extra point, you also had the made 2-point conversion on the other side. L.A. wins by 8. The 2 extra points they got were the difference between covering and not covering. Tough if you had Washington plus the points there.
Yeah, as always, every single week, plenty of those bad beats, man. They just keep it coming. All right, thank you, Teddy. We'll talk to you in just a sec. Hey, with just 3 weeks left in the regular season, every game is huge, which makes it even more fun for we sports bettors. Mariah is at the Superbook Westgate, Las Vegas with more.
Thanks, Dave. I'm here with Executive Director of Superbook Operations, John Murray. John, I want to go back to last week before we move forward. How did you guys do here at the book?
We did very well. The week did not start out well on Thursday. The local team, Las Vegas, with the big win. We did very poorly on that game. Sunday, things got a lot better. You know, the big game was certainly Buffalo beating Dallas. It helped us when Carolina won. They beat Atlanta. And then obviously on Monday night, Philadelphia lost to Seattle late. Don't know how Seattle won. It was very good for us.
Now, one of the highlights of this upcoming week's slate, Christmas Day, Baltimore versus San Francisco. What are you hearing from the Sharps on that game?
I'd say it's the best game of the season. Baltimore is the favorite to win their conference, and San Francisco is the favorite to win their conference. Should be a great game. We were at 6.5. The Sharp guys took Baltimore plus 6.5. Now we're at 5.5. There's going to be a lot of parlays going to San Francisco on Christmas night.
Now, this is the time of year where teams are making their final playoff push. I want to hear one team from the NFC and one from the AFC that you think will make it into the postseason.
I'll go with Los Angeles out of the NFC. They've been playing very well lately. They're dangerous. They're well coached, and they should have won in Baltimore 2 weeks ago. In the AFC, I'm going to give you the cop-out answer. Buffalo. I think they're the best team in the AFC, and I know the other teams in the AFC are hoping they don't make the playoffs. They don't want to see Buffalo in January.
All right, John, thank you so much. Dave, we'll send it back to you in studio.
All right, Mariah, thanks. Up next, we're going to head back to Florida as Jack keeps working on his tan and will tell us which teams are who we thought they were. Plus, Brandon Marshall tells us how miserable those cold tubs are. Those are popular these days, and picks his sleeper team for the playoffs.
Before we take our first time out, in a 30-0 win over New York, Miami running back Raheem Mostert broke the franchise record for most scrimmage touchdowns in a single season with 20. Whose record did he break? The answer after the break.
Beat the Odds is sponsored by Superbook Westgate, Las Vegas.
Welcome back. Before the break, we asked you, in a 30-0 win over New York, Miami running back Raheem Mostert broke the franchise record for most scrimmage touchdowns in a single season with 20. Whose record did he break? The answer, wide receiver Mark Clayton, who scored 18 times for Miami back in 1984.
Well, he, of course, had the great Dan Marino throwing him all those touchdowns. Welcome back to Las Vegas, our home for Beat the Odds. Scan that QR code. It will take you to our website, beattheoddstv.com. And now it is Brandon Marshall time. Brandon, Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas to you as well.
Yeah, well, thank you, sir. As always, it's great having you here. Okay, there's only 3 weeks left in the regular season. As a former player, what is your body feeling like at this point of the season? It's a grind.
Oh, it's a grind. The body is definitely beat up, and what the guys need to do is just consistently get into that training room, even if they aren't feeling a lot of aches and pains. I got that from DeMarcus Ware. DeMarcus Ware, he would feel fine, but he would go every day after practice, get some type of maintenance from the training staff or from the weight room staff, and that allowed him to have that longevity that he has. So I think these players have to continue to, work out their body and get right no matter what.
Are those ice tubs as miserable as they look?
They are miserable.
It's like a thing now.
Yeah.
All right, well, of the 32 teams, 26 are still alive in the playoffs.
Yep.
Is there a team out there, a couple teams who are kind of laying in the weeds that you think could maybe make a run here?
I think Buffalo. I'm looking at Buffalo because, as soon as they fired Ken Dorsey, right, now they have a new offensive coordinator. I feel like the whole team chemistry has looked different. They had a close loss to Philly, right? Then they ended up beating Kansas City finally in Kansas City, right?
Thanks, Kadarius Toney.
Right. And then, they handily beat Dallas. So I like the way that they're, I like their trajectory right now. Now, they do need some help to get into the playoffs.
Yeah.
But I do like Buffalo.
They're definitely playing well these last couple weeks. So right now, the favorite in the MVP race is Brock Purdy. Are you on board the Purdy train? Choo-choo.
You know what? I'm on board the Purdy train, but I'm just not on board the Purdy MVP train.
Okay.
Because I don't even think he's the MVP of his own team. You got to give that to Christian McCaffrey, right? So, and I get it. The MVP award is a quarterback-driven award now, but at the same time, I think we got to look at the Tyreek Hills and the Christian McCaffreys of the world, and I think, that on that team, Christian McCaffrey is what makes that train go.
Yeah, I agree with you on that one. McCaffrey's had an unbelievable season. Yeah. Last question for you. Philadelphia, 3 straight losses. They look completely lost. Yeah. Is this just a rough patch, or are they cooked?
Well, I'm hoping it's a rough patch because I'm looking at San Francisco. They had a 3-game skid as well. So,
True.
They did have a bye week to be able to figure it out, regroup, and then now they're killing it, right? So I do feel like Philly can. I don't think they're cooked. I think they can, come together as a group. Hurts said everybody's not committed enough. They need to recommit themselves, have a team-only meeting, or players-only meeting, and then just figure it out. Because I feel like they have the talent and they have what it takes to make it to the big game.
Yeah, and the schedule softens up these last few weeks so they can get a little healthier, maybe get a little momentum going. Absolutely. All right, Brandon Marshall, as always, thank you, sir. Well, Aaron Rodgers is not coming back, but Jack says both New York teams do have some hope. Here's Jack with more on that.
Yeah, so I think right now, guys, we've got a lot of players that are chasing their tail. They just don't know from week to week what teams are going to be, and no better example of that than are the teams from New York. Gang Green a couple weeks ago, 30 points, looking great, flying high, and then the next week they come down here to Miami and drop a goose egg. G-Men, not much different. This is a team a couple weeks ago against Green Bay. Felt like their offense was settling in. They were scoring some points, and then last week they only get 6. Here's the great news. Both these teams are going to regress to the mean. We haven't talked a lot about that, but you're typically never as good as you appear or never as bad as you appear. Look for both of these teams to put up better numbers. Gang Green, they play Washington this week. 6 of the last 7 in the series have gone over. I expect more points, more production offensively out of New York. I like them to cover that number. And then when you talk about the G-Men, they're playing a Philly team that's really reeling right now with 3 losses in a row. They come home in what would be an exhale spot, but it's kind of a circle the wagons for them. But I think offensively, they've got some issues. They're not getting the ball down the field as much. I look for the G-Men to put up a fight here, play good defense, keep the game close. Philly does not like to open up the offense in general, and they certainly are worried about the health of their quarterback. So look for kind of a low-scoring game in that one. Double digits, a lot of points to cover in the league. Look for the G-Men to put up a fight and cover that number as well. So better news on the horizon for the New York viewers.
Jack, back with Teddy. And Teddy, you found a connection point with every division leader.
Every single one of them
it?
has one thing in common, and it's real simple. Every division leader, Miami, Baltimore, Jacksonville, KC in the AFC, in the NFC, Dallas, Detroit, Tampa, San Francisco. What's the commonality? They all have a healthy quarterback. Hey. That's what the commonality is. Between the 8 division leaders, maybe the quarterbacks have missed a couple of games all year, no serious injuries from any of them. Injuries matter. Healthy teams matter. And when we're paying attention in December, we can make money betting on the healthy teams and betting against some of the injury-riddled squad. And when it comes to these quarterbacks who are healthy now in December, why are they healthy? Offensive line play. I spent a lot of time on this show and in my life trying to deal with figuring out which teams are going to be able to dominate in the trenches, which teams can control the line of scrimmage. And certainly when you talk about strong offensive line play, that's what keeps these QBs healthy, and that's why the 8 teams I just mentioned are all sitting in first place right now. So who's injury riddled? Who's dealing with the injury problems? Well, 3 teams stand out to me, one of whom is done already, LA. The Bolts are done, but maybe they get a new coach bump this week. But Cleveland, certainly still very much a playoff contender. You look at their injury report, offensive line, defensive line, not to mention the 4 quarterbacks they've gone through this year.
Nick Chubb.
Yeah, big issues for Cleveland moving forward. In Tennessee, another team that has injury problems on both sides of the line of scrimmage. Beware of those OL and DL injuries.
All righty, well, they may be separated by 2,500 miles, but Teddy and Jack are still ready to battle. Today's Player Prop Showdown is a very famous quarterback. See that battle next.
Before we take a break, in a 34-20 win over Green Bay, Tampa quarterback Baker Mayfield became the first opposing quarterback to ever record a perfect passer rating at Lambeau Field. But who was the last quarterback to record a perfect passer rating in a game versus Green Bay? The answer after the break.
You're watching Beat the Odds, sponsored by Superbook Westgate, Las Vegas.
Welcome back. Before the break, we asked you in a 34-20 win over Green Bay, Tampa quarterback Baker Mayfield became the first opposing quarterback to ever record a perfect passer rating at Lambeau Field. But who was the last quarterback to record a perfect passer rating in a game versus Green Bay? The answer, Chicago's Vince Evans, who recorded a perfect passer rating during a 61-7 rout of Green Bay back in 1980. When players retire, naturally, they've got a lot of time on their hands, but they never seem to let the game go completely. And Tom Brady is no exception. Yes, he's preparing to take over the broadcast booth next season, but he's used this season to really have a voice on how he truly feels about the league. Now, it wasn't too long ago when TB12 said he felt the league is full of mediocrity, saying, quote, "I think the point is you want to see the game continue to grow and evolve. That means better coaching, better quarterback play, and better defensive play calling. I think a big difference, too, is the lack of time that coaches have with players." Honestly, I agree with him. Coaches don't have long to get their team in a winning position before they get the axe. As for the players, and this goes back to the current MVP race, where Brock Purdy is the heavy favorite, no one quarterback is playing outstanding this season, all producing similar decent numbers, but there's no true outliers. But this wasn't the only case of Brady telling us how he really feels. Tom most recently making comments this week on the hit that knocked Michael Pittman out of the Indianapolis-Pittsburgh game. That hit on Pittman by DeMonte Casey resulted in Casey's suspension for the remainder of the season. And Brady was not shy with his feelings on the suspension, saying, quote, "Nobody likes seeing players get hurt, but hard hits happen. QBs should not be throwing the ball in areas where they're exposing their own teammates to these types of hits. Coaches need to coach better, QBs need to read coverages and throw the ball to the right places, and defenders should aim for the right hitting areas. To put the blame on the defensive player all the time is just flat out wrong." Now, do I think blaming Gardner Minshew is the move here? No, the hit from Casey was delayed, but these things do happen when playing a physical sport. But maybe, if Brady doesn't enjoy his time in the booth next season, he should consider putting on a headset and getting the league past this phase of mediocrity himself.
All right, here we go. These guys haven't seen a gym since pleather pants was a thing. Did you own a pair?
I think I still have. Aren't they on now?
Oh,
Yeah.
wow. But no matter. It is our player prop showdown. Today, the boys will debate Dak Prescott and passing yards. All right, let's send it to the big guy in Florida. Jack goes first.
So we're talking about Dak Prescott passing yards, and this game is really intriguing to me, not because we have two high-profile teams that are vying for a playoff spot, but because we have two teams that can't beat good teams. They both are really good against bad teams, bad against good teams overall. But look for a shootout in this one. If there's one game on the card this week that I think we're going to have a lot of points, it's this game. Prescott's going to have to score points, going to have to throw the ball down the field. I think this is the last team that gets the ball wins. Because of that, look for big numbers out of Dax. I'm not sure that they win the game, but they definitely are going to put up some numbers, and they're going to put up passing yards. Go over the total in passing yards with Prescott this week down here in Miami.
Oh, Jack. It's not about the passing yards for Dallas this week. It's about the running yards. You want an over to play Tony Pollard over rushing yards. But when we look at Dak Prescott's season, 14 previous games, he's gone under this number 9 times. Now, this game has a higher total, admittedly, which means there's supposed to be more points scored. When we look at the injury report, we see all the injuries on Miami's defensive front. The front 7, not healthy. What does that mean? Dallas is going to be able to run the football. And if you're playing from ahead and running the football, we'll talk about that a little bit more in our next segment. When you're playing from ahead and running the football, you don't have to throw the ball all over the field. I'll take Prescott under 276.5. The markets are moving with me, and I agree with that market move.
All right, well, speaking of Dallas, Teddy, they burned you last week.
They did.
Find out if he's going to roll with Big D again, and Jack keeps riding the under train. See which game he expects to be a low-scoring snoozer. Their best bets are next. And before we take our final timeout, with a 63-21 win last week, Las Vegas set a franchise record for most points in a game. Which team in the franchise history previously held that single game record? The answer right after the break.
Welcome Welcome back. Before the break, we asked you, with a 63-21 win over the LA Bolts, Las Vegas set a franchise record for most points scored in a single game. Which team in the franchise's history previously held that record? The answer, the 2010 team, back when they were Oakland. During the 2010 season, the Silver and Black whooped up on Denver 59-14, setting the previous record that was broken just this past week in a game where Darren McFadden scored 4 touchdowns.
Ain't scoring 63 this week. They take on that tough Kansas City defense Christmas morning.
Oh my God.
All right, let's finish. We don't have Jack. Jack's in Florida, but he did send us popcorn. And so the Fat Jack popcorn lid right there is going to take his place in the chair this morning. You guys ready for best bets?
I'm ready when you are.
All right, Santa Jack, take it away.
Hey guys, so best bet time. Let's do a super sexy holiday edition of this one. How about under the total in New England and Denver? Both these teams not scoring a bunch of points. Certainly New England having lots of trouble offensively. They've gone under 9 of their last 12 games. Denver not much better. 7 of their last 9 have gone under as well. Look for no turnovers, trying to keep the ball conservative, stay in front of the chains type game. Low scoring. Go under the total in New England, Denver.
All right, Ted.
So sports bettors are not politicians. We're allowed to flip-flop. And when situations warrant,
So do politicians.
we're supposed to flip-flop. That being said, in this instance, I'm not flip-flopping one bit. Dallas got destroyed at Buffalo last week. I get it. Now they have a statement game, very much so, off a bad performance against a fat and happy opponent off a blowout win. Just like last week, a quality team catching point. Miami, since the beginning of October, 3 times, only 3, they've been favored by less than a touchdown. 0-3 straight up, 0-3 against the spread. They can't step up in class either. Dallas is the play.
Hey, quick note for next week. We're going to have a special edition, a College Bowl edition of Beat the Odds. We break down the big games, and you and Jack are going to argue about Florida State.
As we should, and he's
As we
wrong.
should.